What's going on, guys? So I figured I haven't done a video on my wife's little dirt bike, and there's not a lot of information on the internet about these things. It's been kind of difficult working with for the past 5 or so years, but I'll give you a little walkthrough since I'm going through it and fixing a bunch of stuff she's broken over the years. It's a Beta 125 LC they call it, or a 125rr-s. This one's a 2017, and they still make them to this day. They change the plastics a little bit, and they make a supermoto version of this. What it is it's a 125 liquid cooled street legal dirt bike. It comes from the factory with the MC title, turn signals and all that. Obviously she kept breaking off the rear tail section with the turn signals. We don't ride on the street that much, so I just did away with it. Under here it's got this little tail light. This is actually off of an aftermarket unit off of a Honda. So what I've noticed is there's a lot of cross-referencing parts you can put on this bike off of other smaller European bikes. This engine is a 125 engine, and if you look at the way the clutch housing is and everything, you'll notice that this isn't a Beta engine. It's made by an Italian company, but not by Beta. This engine is installed on a bunch of European scooters and little 125 dirt bikes, and even little mini crotch rockets. The most common one is more like the Yamaha 125, or the WR125X, I think it's called. So this particular bike, I installed a 180cc big bore kit. You can buy them from Athena, from Beta. The problem with that is they're about $800 for the piston, the jug, and all the gaskets. Since this is virtually used in Yamahas as scooters, there's an aftermarket one that you can use. I think it comes from the UK. I put it in about 5 years ago. It was, I think, $110 for the jug, the piston, the rings, and the gaskets. The only issue I had with it was the chain adjuster. So the stock timing chain adjuster couldn't handle it, and it would sit there flapping the case. Athena made a better one for their kit. However, a TTR 125 air-cooled dirt bike tensioner fits perfectly. You just have to modify this bracket ever so slightly and bore out the hole inside this ever so slightly, and these can be found on eBay for $10 all day long. For the carburetor, with the big bore kit, I had to go up, I think, 3 sizes in the main jets. Everything else is perfectly the same, and it runs excellent. I'm not sure how many hours, but this has been on here for 5 years. It still does not use any oil. And then I just checked the valves, and the valves are in spec. I think I've adjusted them once in 5 years. It's your typical, it's very similar to like the Honda air-cooled valves, where you have the little nut and then the screw that just goes in and out. Specs for that, for the intake are 10 to 125 millimeter, and then 125 to 0.2 millimeters. For the oil filter, again, through Beta, it's fairly expensive. High Flow makes one. It's the HF144, and we're going to do that. And what else we're doing is, so the clutch is bad in it. So the clutch from Beta for this bike, each plate I think is $40, and so a clutch kit for this little 125 is well over $500 from Beta. So again, like I was saying, since this engine is used in so many other bikes, I just looked at a bunch of parts diagrams. So this came from England actually, and it's CK2292 from EBC, and this is advertised for a 125, a WR125X, I think a 2015 model bike, and then cover gasket because the same cover, same engine. So this is going to be an experiment to see if this fits, so we're going to tackle that today. And then, as you can see, she had a couple falls. Oddly enough, this didn't leak, but it was buying time until it did. We have a fender up there that she kind of killed, and a set of nice handlebars that she killed. So another issue that we found, see if we can see it over here, is, so you have your steering stop on your frame there, and then you have your steering stops there. So when it comes through, it hits. When she hit so hard to bend the radiator and bend those bars, when this hit, it actually broke this completely, sheared this off completely. So it slammed the bars into the radiator. So to buy this piece, I think it was $500 something. So what I did was I had my buddy just weld on more aluminum up here, and then we milled it out. Obviously some new handlebars, like any other Beta. The sending wire and the gauge thing likes to stop working, so I just got rid of it since we don't use it on the street too much. This bike, I also deleted the air induction system, so you can cap it off up here, and it normally sits in a big box right here for emissions. You don't need it. And then you cap this off here, and then there's also a screen in this muffler that you can take out, and there's a baffle in here that you can take out. You can buy a full exhaust system for this, but I think it's like $600. Just removing those restrictions and the big bore really made a big difference. Unfortunately, unlike a lot of betas, where like the 300R, the 200R, all the other bikes, they use the same parts basically throughout this range. This one is virtually all specific to this bike. So she bent her disc cover disc pretty bad, so there's really no aftermarket options, so you do have to stick with factory. Same thing with your sprockets. I have a sprocket on order, but it's back ordered for a while. You have to get these through beta. The front sprocket you can buy, basically just your typical Honda output shaft, so you can buy an aftermarket one for that, which isn't a big deal. The chain, they come with non-O-ring chains. Now, when I first bought this bike, you couldn't find any O-ring chains for it, but now you can get them. I think it's a, what size the chain is. It's a 428 by 140 link chain. So that one you just buy off Amazon. I'm trying to think, I'm not sure what else. This battery has been in this bike for 3 years. Melissa doesn't ride in the wintertime, and it's never seen a tender, and it's been sitting in the shed since last September when she wrecked really bad and broke her finger. And this thing started right up. Very impressed by these batteries for how cheap they are. As far as tires, I basically give her my takeoffs. Since I run tubeless, once I get a hole in them or once the sidewalls start to crack, they like to slowly seep out. As you can see, I had a hole there I patched up with my tubeless. So when I switch to a newer tire that holds air better, then I just give her my takeoff. And then we have our Enduro engineering guard down here, as you can see. It's doing its job just fine. So yeah, we'll drain the oil, I'll get the clutch cover off, and we'll see if our $80 clutch works in this bike. Well, unfortunately that experiment didn't work. As you can see, actual clutch basket, even though there are 5 plates in here, looking at the parts manuals, the WR clutch basket is obviously a bit bigger than this one. So I was kind of a waste of money, but you never know until you try. Gasket, obviously same gasket that fits. The EBC clutch did come with these new springs, which are quite a bit stiffer than these old ones. So as an experiment, I'm going to throw in these new ones over here. Let's see how it does. In the meantime, I'm going to disassemble this clutch, see if there's any glazing on the friction plates, see if I can freshen them up if there is. The clutch looks really bad. I'll still put it back together, and then I'll just end up eating the beta clutch. Alright, clutch is out. Basket looks pretty good. No grooves anywhere, which is good because this is also stupid expensive. As far as the clutch plates go, they're actually not that as bad as I thought they were. Especially since my wife and my buddy's wife, this was both their first bikes, and they learned how to use the clutch on this bike. There was a little bit of glazing on the metal plates. I cleaned them off, degreased them, took some Scotch-Brite and got it off. So hopefully doing this and some heavy-duty springs will bring this back to life. It could have been just that the old springs were just getting weak, causing the clutch ever feel weird, and it felt like it was slipping. So hopefully this fixes that. Start putting it back together. Okay, well that didn't work either. So these springs are actually a little too long, and they won't fully compress when you pull the clutch lever in, and they actually bind. So stock springs went back in. So the entire point of this was to take some of the glazing off the metal plates, and then it's all going back the way it was. And so I'll scrape this gasket off and put it back together, put oil in it, and see how it feels. Alright, back together. It's a pretty responsive little thing. Well, unfortunately, the Athena gasket that I got is leaking. So I'm gonna have to take this back off and buy a Beta one. A couple things that have broke on it. Now, as I was working on it, I started to remember. This keyhole, unlike all the other bikes, this is actually used as a key here, and it's a little plastic piece. The second you drop this bike and it hits a tree or a log or a rock this way on the seat, it blows this thing out and busts it out. I've gone through 3 of them, so I got tired of replacing them, so I just use zip ties. On the other side over here, I have had the starter go bad. Again, it's just a generic little small 125 starter. The casing was a little bit different on the stock one than the cheap ones. So what I did was I took the internals out of one of the cheap ones off eBay and stuck it in here. And then the starter clutch is actually in here. Again, it's like your old little Honda starter clutch. There's the 3 little sprags in there, and it's all spring loaded. The springs got weak, and it would just sit there and spin. So I bought a cheap one off eBay and took the internals out of the cheap one, the springs and the sprags and all that, and stuck it in here. Other than that, it's been a pretty good little bike. I would definitely recommend this for someone who's looking to get into dual sports, riding like state forest roads, anything that you need a license plate. It's again street legal. Unlike the Hondas that have like a drum rear brake or odd tire sizes, this uses your typical 21, 18 Enduro set of tires and has plenty of ground clearance. So there's really nothing holding you back as a beginner bike for this bike, other than after a while you want to get a little bit more power. If you go look at our Enduro Wiki YouTube channel, I'll stick a link in the description for that too. There's a few videos of this running around some single track trails. She runs most of the rocky, gnarly terrain that we all ride on our big 300 bikes. The only thing this one doesn't really like to do is if it's a long cold climb, it kind of runs out of steam midway up it. Other than that, it's a great little bike. Alright, so it's been a little while since I did the last clip in the video. This was the clutch covered gasket that came with the clutch that didn't work, so that one was leaking as soon as I put it on. So what I did was I called my local Beta dealership and I got a set of new springs, clutch springs, just in case the other ones were weak, and a sprocket. So I had originally ordered this sprocket from Sierra Beta, and they were like a month went by with no communication between them, and they ignored all my phone calls. Finally got a hold of them on Instagram. They got back to me because I ordered this and a shift lever, or a brake lever, shift lever, sorry. So they finally said that they couldn't ship they didn't want to ship my brake lever because this was on back order until the end of August. Anyway, told them to cancel this and give me my shift lever. So I called my local Beta dealership and they said that these were in stock. So within 3 days I got this. So this one's a 65 tooth, stock is a 63 tooth, and they make a 61 tooth. The 63 tooth is actually $125. And this one I think was $60. It's still from Beta. You can't get a steel one. They're all aluminum and they're only made for this bike, so no other sprocket works on it. So anyway, we're going to try a 65 tooth, so going up 2 in the rear, so it should give you a little bit more torque down low. However, the big thing is what's in this box. So this is a 2019 restyling kit in white with new graphics. So this old girl's seen some better days. Obviously that fender was replaced once before. This is cracked. These are all broke off. That's broke off. And this is all cracked back here. So it's time to give her a little bit of refresh. And we'll open the box, and hopefully this 2019 refresh kit fits this 2017. Guys, I think we got a winner. So this kit for around 260 bucks from Sierra came with rim tape, all the actual OEM decals, the nice thick OEM vinyl, rear fender, headlight cowl, gas tank cowl, airbox covers, fork covers, other gas tank cowl, and front fender. And it looks like everything's gonna look right on. So I assume that the frame and everything on all these bikes are the same. If you look at pictures, the plastics just changed a little bit. I think they changed the muffler on the newer ones and the carbs changed on the newer ones. All this stuff should theoretically bolt right up. So for the rear fender removal, seat off obviously. For this cover you need to take this bolt out, and there's a bolt up here. Airbox cover just pops right out. There's 2 Allen keys up here. Then back here you have several bolts that hold this piece on to this subframe here. I modded this a little bit a couple years ago because it kind of hung down a little bit and she kept breaking it off. And also your tungsten wires up here. If you're not going to dual sport this and this keeps breaking off, you can just attach this light to here if you want to keep it, or just completely get rid of it, and the plug's right up here. And this just rips off. As you can see, if I ever want to put turn signals and everything back on, I just kind of tucked all this stuff back in here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to throw the new one on. Alright, rear's on. Went on the same way it came off. Yeah, as you can see, this piece kind of comes up more. The newer model mufflers have like a cover. It's a little different. So I'm going to take a razor blade and I'll shave this off. And I'll shave this little piece off here. Back's done. Moving to the front. For the tank covers, it's just 2 Allen bolts up here, or bolt there, and down here on both sides. As you can see, with all their nice crashes and falls, these things seen better days. So excited to put these back on. Side panels and tank covers are on. So this one does line up with this little guy. This one's broke off because of course it is, and I didn't order new ones. This guy over here isn't exactly lining up, again because these are all bent and warped. So I'll just loop a zip tie through this hole and this hole, keep that from going. However, did notice a little thing over here I didn't notice before. This little hair area here is no longer covered. Makes it super easy to get to the toolkit, which for those who didn't know, the toolkit's right here. So I may look into seeing if the 2019 has a revised inner fairing or inner fender panel. So as you can see, this old one comes down really far on both sides. So I've got to see what covers this up, but we'll move on to the headlight. For the headlight, you take, there's an Allen key here, and Allen here, and then it just kind of slides in here in these holes. To remove the headlight, it's these 3 screws, and obviously it pops right out. I have a little Amazon LED unit in here. It's actually crazy bright, and then a LED what do you call it, accessory light. So it's just going to slide right in there. If you're still dual sporting this and you had your normal turn signals, obviously they mount here and here, so you transfer that over. I'm not putting them on because they're just going to break right off. So I'll throw this on, and then I'll take this fender off. So the fender comes off, but you don't have to take these screws out because this is front piece. You do just take this screw out here and these 4 screws, and the whole fender comes out. Okay, for fender, this lines up perfectly fine. These line up fine. These don't. Look back here. You kind of see where the hole is. It's about a 1/4 inch back. So all I'll do, I'm just oblong these a little bit and get my bolts in. Okay, holes oblonged out. That was easy enough. So second issue ran into. This piece must be different on the newer ones too. So you can see this piece has these 2 little pins that kind of slots in, and this obviously doesn't. So I'm gonna have to buy one of these too, but obviously this still fits fine, headlight fits fine. And let's see if we run into any issues with the fork guards. Fork guards on. On this particular bike you have to take the front tire off, because you can see how close that bolt is there. Same thing on this side. So yeah, the tire comes off, these 3 come out. She is done. I'm gonna spend the next hour cussing and screaming, putting these graphics on. Then I'll get some glamour shots. And we're done. Here's this in all its glory. So this piece normally went all the way up here. I know from experience it'll start to peel, so I just preemptively cut it there. There was supposed to be another piece inside here, but again, that's just going to peel off, so I didn't put it on. Overall, very happy. I assume this is how these go. There's no pictures to go by, just whatever's sitting in the box. I don't remember if I talked about this before. This is the beta part number shifter. Didn't put the sprocket on yet because it's getting late. There you have it. Nice little refresh on this bike.